5-minute penalty to Chicago, a game misconduct, and then Manson having words with Steven. And now Butcher gets into it. We're going to have a brawl, folks. Stand by.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Tyler Cash here, chatting with my boy Tommy. It is another episode of Fourth Line Goon Hockey Podcast. If you tuned in last week, we had an awesome episode with our boy Shane Told from the band Silverstein. But we are on to some more hockey news. Just got home, and I am currently indulging in the best seltzer, alcoholic seltzer I've ever had, and that is glass bottle Topo Chico.
I've never seen the glass ones. That's sick.
It's incredible. Have you had the regular ones?
Yeah.
Dude, it might rival the White Claw. Honestly, like
the Claw. There's new White Claw flavors too, apparently.
Really? What flavors?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I know they exist.
I mean, I feel like at this point we're seltzer connoisseurs because we were like all about it 2 years ago, and I hop back on the train every once in a while. Like I get kind of sick of it. But this is revitalized.
It's
my love.
Okay, yeah. I've had the Topo Chico, the regular mineral water. I've had the hard seltzers. They're good. I didn't know they made it in glass bottle. I love it. But White Claw hard seltzer. It's called Surf Edition. So you have citrus yuzu, tropical pomelo, watermelon lime, and wild berry acai.
Okay, yeah, I'm on board with the acai because the wild berry Trulies. You know how I feel about those. Those have been my favorite for quite some time. And yeah, man, I'm hopping back on the train. The weather's getting warmer. It's starting to get kind of in the 80s pool realm, I guess, I feel like. And what better way than to enjoy it with a glass seltzer Topo Chico. So if you guys are listening to this and you want to sponsor the podcast, here we go.
Well, even more importantly, though, shout out to Schlafly, of course, for sponsoring us, not to leave them in the dust.
Yeah,
if I was in St. Louis, I'd be raising one, but unfortunately, I'm not. Next time I'm back, maybe I'll pick up a 6-pack or a 12-pack and bring it back.
And I love Schlafly, but they're not out here in my neighborhood, and they've been trying to get us some out here, and hopefully they will soon because I enjoy their craft beers. I don't know that they've delved into the seltzer realm, but their white lager is awesome. I love their coffee stout. It's great. They make good product, and that's actually how we got them on the show sponsors, is being like, hey, you like alcohol, someone sponsor us, and then they chomped at the bit. So cheers to Schlafly for sure for that one. So yeah, if you're tuning in, this is a hockey podcast and not a seltzer review TikTok.
Allegedly.
And we got a little bit of news to talk about, and then we're going to dive into the main topic, which is going to be the upcoming trade deadline and who we think are going to be buyers and sellers and some of the hot trade targets. So, but before we get to that, I feel like something that's wholesome as fuck and it's just great for any sport, let alone hockey, is Jason Robertson. The story of the rookie that was drafted in 2017 in the second round, 39th overall by the Dallas Stars. The dude's just been quietly a stud, and recently he's shown up big time. I'll let you take over from there.
Yeah, I mean, dude's been solid as hell for sure. I mean, even to this day, I think combination of like going into the second round, playing for the Dallas Stars, and like having a point per game average, and I really don't feel like anyone's talking about it. Kind of wild. I guess technically he's not a point per game. He's like 0.999 points per game, 100 points in 101 games. But I mean, yeah, it's been interesting. Guy's only 22. I mean, I don't know if we could, say he's a superstar yet or not. This is what, second full year in the league. I mean, obviously, I think last year was a bit shortened as well. So he's kind of around like the same pace over the same amount of games over 2 seasons. So it'll be curious to see how he, ends the season, if he's strong or being a little bit younger, not used to those longer grinding seasons, if his legs will kind of fall off a little bit. But I mean, guy's been stud for sure. I think it also doesn't help, like, the terrible thing to say, but like, he's Filipino. And like, if he was like, a Filipino from California, if he was a, white Caucasian dude from Edmonton, probably a bit more hype behind the guy. Sad that that's the case sometimes, but that's
I mean, I haven't heard his name not once
Very
until
little.
it was all over Twitter talking about the fact that he got 2 hat tricks back-to-back games.
Yeah.
And I saw that clip where he got that second hat trick secured with the empty netter. I think they were playing the Jets or the Blue Jackets.
So. I think it was Jets.
And somebody like cross-checked him as he was finishing off the goal. And he just had this look on his face like somebody could have just decked him, laid him out, and he still would have been smiling huge. Like it was an oh my God moment, which you just love to see, man. Like, you know, I love to hear these underdog stories of guys grinding it out, you know, that were drafted in the second and third rounds and find their place in the NHL, let alone, as you said, 100 goals in 101 games, or sorry, 100 points.
Yeah. I was gonna say, if that's the case, we would definitely be hearing about it.
No, I know though. I saw something online about the fact that he was one of the quickest to reach that in the league currently. It was like the top 10 to reach 100 points in the fewest amount of games. He was up there with like names McDavid, Matthews, Draisaitl, all these studs that you hear about on the reg. And, you know, being the fact that this is the first time I've heard Jason Robertson's name, I mean, that's wild. But, you know, awesome to see. 3 against Winnipeg, 3 against Minnesota. It was Minnesota that was that last game, not Columbus.
Right.
And yeah, just a beauty. If you haven't seen that video, make sure you check that out on the interwebs.
Fun fact, I've actually looked this up. I was very surprised. Players that there's been first 4 active NHLers that have scored hat tricks in back-to-back games right now, which I thought was way more than I expected.
Okay.
Most recently was Ovechkin. I take that back. Ovechkin, no, Kane hasn't done it. Noel Achari and Philip Forsberg.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but still, like the fact that that's happened, 4 times in the last 5 years now, I feel like that's pretty damn impressive.
But out of those names, Jason Robertson does not.
I mean,
you know,
Noel Achari,
come to memory.
To be fair, either, but. Yeah, I know you're right. I mean, to be in the same, you know, realm as Ovechkin and Philip Forsberg at 22 years old, pretty damn good spot to be.
Yeah, kid deserves the world, and I hope that he continues contributing. I hope we continue to hear his name. And here's a name that we hear about all the time, though. Auston fucking Matthews. First to 40 goals in the league this year. It only took him 56 games. Guy's just a monster. You know, when it comes to this year, there's only Kreider and Draisaitl that are even close to what he's producing as far as goals go. I mean, there's really no surprise here. I mean, but he's been a blast to see. And I mean, as I mentioned last episode, I fully believe that he's going to be a force to be reckoned with for quite some time.
Yeah. I mean, he's not going away anytime soon. Like the only seasons he has put up 40 goals, he hasn't been. Well, it's funny. He put up 40 goals in shortened seasons. But the 2 seasons that he was injured, he put up 34 and 37, which is still nuts. And then I know you mentioned it last podcast on how he could catch Ovechkin, and I'm like, that's a good point for 2 reasons. One, Ovechkin. Well, actually, no, take it back. Ovechkin had to play, I think, through 1, if not 2, extra shortened seasons than Matthews did. So that's
right.
Maybe a full year to catch him. So we'll see. I think there's definitely a possibility if you can put up 40 goals for 20 years. I mean, you'll be right up there, right?
So how many years has he been in the league? I mean, 2017 he was drafted, I believe.
This is 6th year. So
okay,
so 6th year, about 240 goals,
which is insane. So like looking at his season by season record, is he averaging 30 goals a year or a season, or is it like
about 40? It's probably like 38, 39 on average.
Wow.
And again, a couple of those seasons weren't healthy fully, so it's still nuts. Yeah, I mean, he's averaging what in his career right now? We do quick math.
He's a point per game player at least.
Point per game, yeah, but he's averaging what is it? He's averaging a goal, 0.61 goals a game, 0.62 goals a game. So basically, every 3 games, he's getting about 2 goals, which is nuts.
And I've mentioned before, it's easy for these guys to get goals on teams that suck because eventually someone has to put the puck in the net. And I mean, let's just be honest here. Offense is the least of the least worries. I mean, he's got Marner. He's got Tavares. I mean, they're getting production all over the place. So the fact that he's able to still find these 40-goal seasons while competing with these guys that are also playing out of their mind, insane, absolutely insane. And one other thing I want to mention when it comes to Leafs Nation is we also were the first to kind of point out the opportunity for Marc-Andre Fleury to become a Leaf, and now we're seeing Chicklets talking about it. We're seeing Sportsnet talking about it.
That's true.
And I don't know, man. It could become a reality, which is crazy because here we are thinking Mrazek and Campbell were like the tandem, and Mrazek's kind of, fallen to the wayside. So if they can move him out, which I believe he has like 1 year left on his deal, that gives a goaltender for sure in Chicago who's still trying to figure their shit out.
2 more years after this for Mrazek. So.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a deal right there. You could send Mrazek right there. You at least have stable goaltending. Because last time I heard, Subban, he's still with the Hawks organization, right? But he's not playing in the NHL.
I don't remember.
Malcolm Subban's name has not come out in quite some time.
I know he's not playing. I thought he was with he's with Buffalo. That's right.
Oh, okay. He did get shipped out. I know that him and Delia spent some time in the AHL instead of actually being backups to Fleury, which is extremely interesting.
Side note, Malcolm Subban's played 4 games this year, had a 4.85 goals against and an 87 save percentage.
Wow. Anyway. Granted, Buffalo's not a great team, but still, yeah, rough go for that goaltender. But yeah, if Fleury winds up,
he's out for the season with an upper body injury.
Upper body, okay.
That's why he's not playing.
I know he's had groin problems. Like he's usually lower body that took him out when he was playing for the Golden Knights. But either way, if Fleury winds up wearing blue and white this year, I'm not going to say we were first on that hype train, but I'm also not going to say that, and that's just going to be wild.
Really curious to see how those jersey sales are.
Dude, I want one. You know how I feel about the Leafs. They're kind of like another team that I love to watch, and if the Knights are out in the playoffs, then I'm going to go all in, because if it's going to come down to a Canadian team finally winning the cup, which I know what you're saying is keep the cup out of Canada, as you always say. But if I'm going to go for another team, I would love to see them take it. And obviously if Fleury could bounce around and be on one of the worst organizations and the worst teams, and then somehow find his way to a cup contender, I would be nothing but stoked for him. But I know we've seen online, he said he doesn't want to get traded, which kind of indicates that maybe he's mentally out of it. Like he doesn't want to play anymore. I mean, he just wanted to kind of finish out this contract, and maybe he's going to find retirement.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. Like definitely waiving the opportunity to go to a contender and prove his self-worth doesn't really say a lot when it comes to his future, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, like dude's 37, he's got a family to consider. There's so many things that go into the mix at that point, but we will know in about 2 weeks. Probably less. Yeah,
trade deadline is in 12 days from today. So, which is going to be a big focus of today. Obviously, we're going to have 2 more episodes before trade deadline, so we're going to really dive into specifics as they get closer. But today, we want to focus in on the upcoming trade deadline, and we both prepared 3 different UFAs that we feel are the strongest to offer a contending team, and also the ones that we feel are the most likely to get dealt. Actually, the title, I feel like, if this is going to be UFAs we felt that will be dealt.
Jesus.
You like that? It was kind of like the kind of monster truck Sunday vibe.
Yeah.
What's up, everyone? Tyler Cash here from the Fourth Line Goon Hockey Podcast, interrupting this week's episode to talk about one of our amazing sponsors, Schlafly Brewing Company. A staple in the St. Louis community for 30 years now, they have 4 different brew pubs located all over the metropolitan area, including downtown St. Louis, Maplewood, St. Charles, and most recently they opened a location in Highland, Illinois. From stouts and porters to lagers and IPAs, when it comes to delicious and refreshing beers, Schlafly has got you covered. Their Just a Bit Hazy IPA is an easy drinking IPA that will hit stores this February alongside their highly sought after Tasmanian IPA. If you know me, you know I enjoy a good dark beer, and their coffee stout is among some of the best I've ever tasted. If you're looking for something just a bit lighter though, their white lager is crisp and clean, as it's unfiltered and perfect for the domestic beer drinker that would like to transition to drinking more craft beers. You can download the Schlafly app on your phone to help locate and purchase their products all across the country. Be sure and follow them on Facebook and Instagram for constant new updates and information on all of their products. Schlafly beers are delicious and refreshing. Check them out. You won't regret it.
You know what? I'm going to kick it off because I'm really stoked. I prepared this while I was sitting at the bar, drinking and watching the Golden Knights fucking piss away yet another game to a bottom feeding team. Don't want to talk about that right now. That's
Blues
for sure.
The same tonight against the Sens, so it's okay.
Yeah. So I was at that game, the Knights versus the Senators, and I know there's some questions whether or not that final call that the refs made with the trip was, I don't know, was the right call. And
it was a call, but
yeah,
to be fair, I didn't watch the whole game, so I don't know what was dictated.
40 seconds left, you should let them play. But here's the thing, they were calling things left and right. They really were. So that's my thing. I feel like refs at the very beginning of the game will go, this is the vibe. We're going to set the vibe and we're going to keep going for it. And they set the precedent early, saying that they were going to call shit, and they did. And yeah. And then for whatever reason, the Knights finally buried one, I think after 19 unanswered power plays. Jack Eichel roofs it, and just an awesome moment. But aside from that, we were preparing these 3 UFAs that are pending for the next season that we feel would be a valuable asset to another team that's making a cup run. And the first of my 3, we'll go back and forth. The first of my 3 is actually a surprise when I saw the announcement of the rumors, and that's center Philip Forsberg from the Nashville Predators, which are not completely out of the playoff picture, right? So that was what surprised me when his name got thrown out there. But I feel like his name was thrown out there because maybe he's being open with the front office, and he's like, yo, I'm not coming back. Maybe contract negotiations have gone stale. He wants too much money. They're not going to invest in him, whatever it may be. He's got 27 goals, 19 assists for 46 points in 42 games, damn near a career year. He's essentially been a 20-plus goal scorer his whole career when healthy, on pace for one of his best seasons yet. He's due up for a pay raise. That's the reality, and maybe the Preds aren't wanting to pay him. I don't know. He's only 27. He is aging out, but he's going to want to capitalize at one last big contract, at least as far as term goes, don't you say?
Well, that's what I wonder, right? Is he is pretty much capped out at 20 to potentially 30 goal score, putting up 60 points a year, which is nothing to sneeze at. But I mean, he's making $6 million as it is. What's he going to go up to? 8 maybe? It's not going to be a crazy bump up from say Connor McDavid from his rookie deal to, something like that, or even just a couple mil to 8-9 mil. He's not going to go that high. And the thing that's also confusing is the Preds have almost 10.5 million cap space. They don't have a whole ton to re-sign outside of Philip Forsberg. So something doesn't necessarily make sense. And obviously they're on that fringe of still being a playoff hunt. Something's odd, in my opinion, with that. So I don't know if this is what David Poyle's the GM of the Predators sort of mindset of we're going into a rebuild, which again, I don't know how much that makes sense either when you have Duchesne and Johansson and Granlund all locked up for multiple years.
And Saros, who's just been a stud between the pipes.
Right. These aren't aging guys. I think the oldest guy on the Preds is 31 years old. They're not a super old team by any means. So unless the only thing that makes sense to me is unless you're getting a first or something along the lines of trading him for a similar production maybe player and you're giving a pickup in return to make that happen to get someone longer term. Like, yeah, I think that's the only thing that makes sense is like he's kind of been up front, like, I don't want to be here, or something else is just, I don't know if the Predators are waiting to strike in free agency with this cap space they have. And just kind of odd, especially in the spot that they're in. They're like not on a downturn. They're in a decent spot for what it's worth. So
I think they're fifth currently in the Central, which technically puts them out of a playoff spot by like barely. My thing is, as you said, you don't think he's going to get that much of a pay raise, but as we're seeing around the league, these guys are approaching that 8-9 million mark, especially with these defensemen, these stud defensemen. The 9.5 was the quote for all these guys in free agency.
Defensemen are a bit different, I feel like, in all honesty.
Yeah, they're fewer and far between, I guess, as opposed to forwards that are pure goal scorers. But I like to compare him to Mika Zibanejad, who got a pay raise, and he's been kind of in that same ballpark of 20 to 30 goals per year. He's in New York right now with 8.5. So Philip Forsberg, his name has been attached in the rumor mill when it comes to Vegas, which is hilarious because Vegas is already over the cap, and I mean, I'm not doubting it. I'm sure they'd find a way to jump through cap hoops to figure this out. But I think a better fit would be in New York. And here's why. Ryan Strome has been attached in the trade mill. You could potentially deal him if you needed to find out the cap space. But he's also in the same UFA situation. So it would give New York strength up the center. Ryan Strome is only making 4.5. So you slot Forsberg in the center line, second line center, move Strome to the third line if you can somehow figure out to maneuver the cap. And you know what? Give him Capo Caco. And I know he's injured right now, so that might be kind of tricky as far as whether he's going to be healthy enough to make this trade. But Caco really hasn't fit in with the New York Rangers organization, which is crazy considering they're such a force to be reckoned with as far as offensive-minded hockey goes. Send him Caco and, some picks, help build the Preds' future. As you said, it seems like they're kind of holding out for free agency and some sort of rebuild. They're not out of the picture, like you said, but maybe they're looking around their locker room and they just don't think it's their year and they don't want to go all in, which I can respect that.
I mean, yeah, to a degree, I feel like. I mean, it's just interesting dynamic because they're in that last wild card spot for what it's worth, like right now. So
okay,
like they have that locked down. I don't want to say locked down. They have like 3-point buffer, but still, I don't know, just odd in general. I mean, I feel like ever since they've come off of that like cup heartbreak against the Penguins, it's just been a slow regression down. But like I feel like they've leveled out, but I don't know. It's just a team where I just don't ever get that sense of like you just don't know where they're going to end up. So
Forsberg's definitely moving on though, and if you can get some pieces for him, and you don't think you're all in this year, why not move it? Why not move him and get some assets for it? But let's talk about your first pick as far as pending UFAs go.
Yeah, I mean, I think one that I will start off with is just an interesting dynamic because there's just so many unknowns with it. Not a hot topic, I think. Well, it's a hot topic, but not a hot commodity, I guess I should say, in PK Subban. Like,
yeah,
Devils have pretty much come out and said, like, you're not getting re-signed. I think he's in the last year of like I think like $9 million deal. Even with 50% retention, that's a $4.5 million cap hit for a guy who's obviously aging, who has experience. But at the same time, like we always see at the trade deadline, these depth guys getting scooped up for, a third or fourth round pick or something like that. So I'm thinking that's a perfect opportunity for a third team to kind of pop in and be like, hey, give me like a sixth. I'll take another half off that cap hit, make it like 2.7 or 2.25 or whatever it would be, 50% of 50%. And at that point, it's like, if that's the case and the team's willing to pay a third and, like a sixth or something to get someone like that who has experience, that opens the door for so many teams. Like, I mean,
the Blues.
I mean, you could say the Blues.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're looking for a veteran defenseman that they can add. You know, they want to.
It's tricky though, because like Doug Armstrong, I don't feel is the type of guy to do that. Like to add an extra person to the thing. Also, side note, Auston Matthews has a hat trick tonight. So
wow,
43 goals, I think.
Yeah, so now he's on pace for 62 this season. Yeah. No, 63. Yeah. 63 this season, which would be insane. And yeah,
nuts. But yeah, I look at it and I'm like, I think this is just looking at what they have, like I think the perfect spot for him is the Panthers, quite honestly. They don't have a sixth defenseman. Like they have like basically old blue scraps and Petteri Lindbaum and another young 24-year-old defenseman in Lucas Carlson. And like outside of that, like look at their other 5 defensemen and it's like, yeah, they're solid. They're good. So like I think that would make sense if they can get a third team in the deal. Need to shed probably about $1 million or $2 million in cap space, and maybe you send back a depth guy to offset it. But I think that makes sense to me there. Outside of that, I mean, again, you could go anywhere with it, quite honestly. Like, you know, the Hurricanes just come out and said their GM's like, I don't want to shake up the team like at all. Could even see, I think that's a perfect like opportunity for the Leafs too. Like with Muzzin having a big gap on your back end to get a guy for basically 75% retention.
Yeah.
And if Muzzin's going to be out long term, theoretically you could still add a goaltender on top of that if you really want to. Those are probably the 2 landing spots I feel like if it happens, especially because you're not sacrificing a lot to get a veteran guy that people generally don't like around the league lately because of all the slew foots. But
PK Sluban,
yeah,
as they call him. But my thing is he might just be a liability, you know, taking too many penalties when it comes to the offseason, as you said, shaking up a locker room in not a good way. So yeah, I while I could see his veteran presence, and he's not the worst hockey player, he's got a good shot, decent, you know, shot from the blue line, and you know, he is a character in many senses. I mean, he could add something to a locker room for sure, but how wild would that be going from Montreal to Nashville to New Jersey and then finding your way in another Canadian team? I mean, the Leafs could definitely use it, but I think Muzzin's going to show up. I think he's going to show up day one of the postseason. I know.
Well, that's the thing, though. You got the cap space to navigate if you're going to pull a, you know, mini Kucherov, right? I mean.
Yeah, I think everyone's really anxious to point fingers when it comes to pulling that, just because, you know, the Tampa Bay Lightning just owned it so much, you know, just in post-game interviews and on the ring. I think it's on the ring and on shirts and just like 16 million other caps suck our fucking dicks. I feel like everyone's easy to point fingers whether or not someone's really injured or not. And I'm sure that this is going to be something that a decade from now we're talking about and we're like, I can't believe that this was ever a rule in the NHL. But right now teams are figuring out ways to make it happen. And it's not the first time this has ever happened in the league. It's just now it's getting brought to light. But yeah, I mean, it's not a bad pick. I could see PK at least adding to, you know, a bottom pair defenseman, you know, bringing that veteran presence to a team.
What's up, Goons? This podcast is brought to you by 1 in a Million Handyman Services Incorporated. 1 in a Million is a family-run local company that's been serving the Las Vegas, Nevada area for over 15 years. They are licensed and insured throughout Clark County and travel as far as Boulder City, Henderson, Las Vegas, and North Las Vegas. 1 in a Million specializes in smaller home repairs, but also tackles commercial repairs. They've worked around the Strip, residential homes, commercial buildings, you name it, 1 in a Million has made their mark. With a 4.5-star Yelp review and countless of happy customers throughout the 15 years, you can guarantee you'll be happy with their services. All previous customers can refer an unlimited amount of friends and family for a $25 referral credit, which would come off of any future projects and or repairs if they decide to use 1 in a Million. This offer also extends to the Fourth Line Goon listeners. Mention this podcast and you will receive a $25 referral credit that will come off of the total cost of your repairs. Juan in a Million is open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and you can find him on the web at juaninamill.com. That's JUANINAMILL.com, or you can also find him at juan.inamill on Instagram. Juan in a Million handyman services won't let you down. Check them out.
I did not go with any defensemen. Spoiler alert. Mine are all forwards because I feel like forwards are the most added at trade deadline because they like to fill out the third and fourth line and kind of add some scoring depth. Tomas Hertl from the San Jose Sharks. I think it's obvious he's going to get moved. He's got a cap hit of $5.6 million. The Sharks are in second to last in their own division, only above the expansion team, the Seattle Kraken, which, as we all know, has just been a dumpster fire. I mean, they're playing like an expansion team, which is, no knock on them, but they're, still figuring out their position and their footing when it comes to, being a team and their chemistry. So yeah, way out of the playoff picture. And you got to think they're going to move him to better their future. I mean, I doubt he wants to stay put. He's due up for a pay raise as well. Although I don't think it's as much as Philip Forsberg. I'm thinking somewhere in the ballpark of 7.5, maybe 8 million, pushing that ballpark where right now he's just right below 6. He's got 22 goals and 20 assists for 42 points in 56 games. He's capable of being a 20 goal scorer when he's healthy. He's just not as consistent as Philip Forsberg. He's kind of having a hell of a year right now, but yeah, I don't know. I think he would be a great addition for a team, and I think it would be kind of stupid for the San Jose Sharks to not pull the trigger and help get them a brighter future because it's not looking too good. When you say,
I mean, yeah, I think the question is if you want to re-sign him, are you able to agree to something that's going to be a hometown discount to a degree where like, hey, I want to I don't necessarily, it's not that I don't care about winning, but like, this is where this is where I've been. This is where I've started everything. I played for this team for, the last 8+ years. Like, it is what it is at this point. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say, but that's the only way you keep them. But I think that's the other thing too, is like seeing where you're at in standings. Like, do you just kind of, pack it in and get the picks and hope for, maybe win the lottery or, something along those lines? That's a possibility too. So, I mean, I think he definitely gets moved. I think the question of who gets him is very, very debatable.
I mean, the New York Rangers have cap space, and I think that he would slot in perfectly with that team as well. But you know what? I think that he would look great in Pittsburgh, and they couldn't pull it off now. I don't think, because they're right at the salary cap ceiling. But you got to think, Jeff Carter, he's centering their third line, and he's 37 years old. Yeah, he's having a decent year, but he's aging out.
He's got 2 more years left on his deal. They signed an extension for it, not on his deal, but he signed an extension, so he's going to play till pretty much 40.
Well, okay, but I mean, move him to your fourth line. What is he making? Maybe my point's stupid.
He went from 2.6. He's getting a pay raise 3.1.
Okay, that's not bad though. 3 million,
nuts.
3 million for your fourth line center is not horrible. You can live with that. So move him to your fourth line. Bring in Tomas Hertl to be your third line center, potentially competing for second line minutes. I don't know. I think that would be a big fit for him, a good fit. I don't think that the Penguins are going to make any drastic moves because they just can't afford it, and it's clicking right now. So they probably won't make a lot of moves at trade deadline, like a team like the New York Rangers might. So it'd make more sense there. But I wouldn't be surprised if in the offseason he finds his way over the East Coast. I think it would be a good fit, especially for how he plays. He's got really good hands. He's really fast. Like he's a very diligent hockey player, and I think he fits in really well when it comes to that. Also, I think the Minnesota Wild, who has a decent chunk of cap space left as well. I think it's 3 or 4 million. I think it would be great for them because they lack forward depth, and that's very obvious. I think Kaprizov can't carry that team deep into the playoffs. I mean, they were able to hold the Vegas Golden Knights to a game 7 in round 1, but that's just because the Knights have problems with scoring. But at least they have the depth where they can have these guys in the third, fourth line contribute. And yeah, I don't think Minnesota has it. So and yeah, that also trade him out of division, and I think it would be a good fit personally. But that's my number 2. What's your number 2?
Okay. I mean, I think this is definitely one that's going to happen, but it's a touchy subject for Claude Giroux and leaving Philly to begin with. You know, the captain of Philly for a while. He's played there since 07. I mean, he's got a full, I think, no move clause, so he kind of gets a say in where he could go with what's presented to him. So,
He's not going anywhere that's not a contender. That's for sure.
I mean, yeah, 100%. That's without a doubt. And I think like the few that come to mind is, again, you're probably, I mean, I take that back. Maybe, I mean, you could, the last year on a deal, like trade him to someone in your division, even is probably okay. I think you'll live with that, especially if the return's good. I think the 3, maybe 4 that makes sense is like, I feel like Colorado could potentially pull something off to grab him for sure. Send something back to offset cap hit a little bit. Have them retain, throw in a first or something like that. Boom, you got it. You're done.
Here's the question, though. I don't want, before you move on here, I've seen the Colorado Avalanche's name involved in Claude Giroux. You got to give up Alex Newhook. Are you pulling the trigger on that? Are you going to send this guy that could be the future of your franchise, especially if you don't know if Kadri's coming back, for a guy that is aging out?
You're not giving that up. It's a 34-year-old guy on a rental. You're not giving that up. Not at all. You're giving up a first, but the problem is they don't have a first for this year. It'd be for 2023. But you're not giving up a guy that's 21 for a 34-year-old guy, in my opinion. I don't care who he is personally.
So they don't have the assets.
That's the question. Like, is Philly okay to wait for like a first and a third, or have 2 picks spread out and as opposed to 1 right next year? Who knows? So I mean, there's that concept of it. I mean, the Minnesota Wild are probably, I feel like, again, when it comes to a veteran player, I think makes just about the most sense. They have the cap room to pretty much navigate just about how they need to. They have all of their draft picks, I think, for the next 3 years, except like a 7th rounder this year. So I think you have plenty of opportunity to make it work there. I think that makes the most sense. They really just, I mean, forward wise, nothing really is like, whoa, they have that guy. Like Kaprizov is good, but like they don't have, anyone on the level of a Giroux or a Crosby or a McDavid. Granted, I don't think Giroux is up there, but point being, like, they could definitely use some more forward depth, I think, for sure. So I think that makes sense.
They got rid of Suter, and who was the other one they got rid of?
Parise.
Parise.
But they're on the hook for like almost $5 million a year, I think.
But they're missing that veteran leadership in the locker room. I mean, it's not quite as strong. And definitely not as old as it used to be. So Giroux could have that kind of impact in the locker.
Here's the thing, though. This is the year to do it, because next year that dead cap hit of almost $5 million that they're paying for Suter and Parise goes to almost $13 million next year.
Wait, what?
Yeah, the buyout rules. Look it up; it's nuts. And then
wait, they have to pay $13 million.
They have basically, like, against their cap hit, almost about $12.7 million for 22-23, and then about 14.7 for the next 2 years after that, because they bought out those crazy ass deals that they signed.
Wow.
So this is really the only year where I feel like they're going to have a chance to compete. So this makes perfect sense to go in after a UFA is on the books for 1 year. And like, we tried, it is what it is.
Wow. That's insane. I had no idea.
Yeah,
I mean,
nuts.
I'm with you. Giroux is definitely going to be on the move. I know that he had mentioned Avs, the Blues, the Wild, like a lot of central teams if he was interested in.
Yeah, right. And if there's another team that's now on that list that makes sense to me too, I think the Panthers. Like, they have solid forward depth. Why not add another? It's either that or a defenseman for them. And like, it's weird to say, but it's like this is an all-in year for them, but they really aren't losing much in terms of like who's on the books or really anyone up that's a huge component of their team over the next like year. So you go in this year, but again, they don't have the picks first or second for this year, so I'd have to get creative with it, I think. But those would be my three: Avalanche, Wild, and Florida. I don't think the Blues make a move for Drew.
So my last pick, as far as the top three that I think that would benefit a team, and then that are pending UFAs, is one that I don't think is talked about near enough, and that's Phil Kessel, winger from the Arizona Coyotes. And yeah, they came out and they're willing to say that they would be down to eat 50% of his salary, which is a 5.6 cap hit. I think that there's a team that's still eating some of his cap hit currently. I guess that would be Pittsburgh, right? I mean, I know that it would come down to 5.6, which 50% would be 2.3. A team could add him as their third or fourth line winger to add some depth. Guy's won 2 Stanley Cups. He can offer up a strong veteran leadership in the locker room. Still got some game left. 34 points in 55 games. Granted, most of those are assists. He's been consistently a 20 goal scorer in the past. At that cost, I say he's worth the risk. Doesn't matter.
Fun fact: it's not the Penguins; it's still the Leafs who are retaining.
It's still the
salary
Leafs. Oh my God, still the Leafs. Okay, I wasn't sure. Yeah. Wow. Talk about shit.
Last year. So.
And I mean, and how wild would that be if they made a trade for him? That would be. Can you do that? If you're retaining salary?
I have no idea how that works, but imagine how nice of you to have that 1.2 million cap space right now if you were them.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. You know what though? I would like to throw VGK's hat into the ring. I think that adding Phil Kessel as a winger who's known to put up the goals, especially on the power play, would be a great asset to the Vegas Golden Knights. You know, if they can pull off a scenario where they send Dadonov back, who's got another year after this on his contract. I think it's at least another year, if not 2. So you're giving a forward back to the Coyotes that's usable, that would probably be a stud. The Coyotes have already gone on record and said they were willing to eat, quote unquote, eat one of the bad contracts for the Golden Knights. Why not send Dadonov, maybe a 3rd round pick? Yeah, I mean, they already went on record saying a 3rd round pick would eat half his salary. You're going to get Phil Kessel at a fraction of the cost. At bare minimum, he's going to do at least what Dadonov has been doing, which is not a lot, but, you know, not horrible.
I mean, if there's someone who can help the power play too, I feel
right.
Like.
Yeah, I think Phil Kessel would be a good landing spot for him. Would be Vegas, personally.
Speaking of Kessel, did you hear what he did today?
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congrats for the kid, but he flew to Detroit, and like all the players apparently pregame were like chirping him, like, "Oh, have a great game, Phil. Like, you're gonna do so good today." And he goes and takes one shift, leaves, gets fist bumps, and flies back for the birth of his child, which is amazing. But it's to keep his Iron Man streak going, which I think is at like 956 games.
Okay, that's awesome. And you know what though, and it's his firstborn, so I'm glad he doesnn't have to miss that. That's awesome.
Side note, if I would have connected the dots, I would have put so much money on like, oh, Phil Kessel under 1 point. Phil Kessel has no assist. Phil Kessel has no goals. Like, just imagine a parlay of that for like 10 grand.
Yeah.
And then he just like, oh, he played, so he technically have to pay me out, right?
That's yeah, but good for him.
Knows.
Congratulations. I think it's been awesome. So what's your third and final pick?
So I was tough for me deciding because I feel like I want to include this one because he's not a UFA, but if it happens, it'll be a huge haul. And it's Jacob Chikrin of the Coyotes. So he's still got 3 more years on his deal after this one. 23 years old. By all means, he has a bright future ahead of him. He also put up 3 points tonight, so maybe he's amped up for knowing he could potentially get out of Phoenix right now. But I mean, if there's a trade chip for the Coyotes to stockpile even more picks, which, mind you, they have 8 picks in the first 2 rounds next year, 3 in the first, 5 in the second. Like, that's your guy. I mean, he's got a 4.6 million cap hit, which is crazy low. Guy's playing phenomenally. If that's someone you're willing to bite the bullet, like I want this guy to be a part of my future long term, like that's the guy you bite the bullet for, whether it's sending like a couple of firsts and a top guy or whatever the case may be. That's the one you go after. I can 100% see it happening this year. Where he goes is even more interesting because that I think opens the door with having a team friendly deal for the next 3 years. It doesn't necessarily have to be a contender right now, right? Like I could see him easily going to like the Kings or the Ducks, quite honestly, the teams that have honestly accelerated their rebuild way more than I think anyone expected. But even in addition, like, could you even see him like going to a contender? And then maybe like this probably never happened, but like imagine like trading a bunch for a guy for a playoff run, knowing you can't keep him the next 3 years, but then trying to flip him elsewhere. Probably doesn't make sense because teams will like hold out against you. But
right,
I could definitely see some fringe teams getting in the mix, I think, for sure. I think in addition to that, there's just a lot on the table in terms of where he could go. I mean, I don't even know like where to begin, quite honestly, because the guy is a stud, but he's fucking 23 years old. I mean, I think the Blues could be a huge fit for him too. Like they have the assets to give up some young defensemen like Perunovic, the Hobie Baker Award winner before he came to the Blues. They have the picks, they have some depth to give away, I think, as well. Really, really hard to say. I could see like 10 teams being in on the guy, quite honestly, and I think that's where it gets dicey. It's like all bets are off, quite honestly. But I mean, those would probably be my three. Is like I could definitely see the Kings or the Ducks trying to keep him in the division and get him and sacrifice a little bit of the future for having that top D man, especially knowing I think on the Ducks like Hampus Lindholm I think is gonna bounce soon. That's my opinion. So I don't think it'll be a contender, but someone who can afford to do it without sacrificing what they have.
So funny story about Jacob Chikrin. He was drafted in 2016, 16th overall in the first round. Okay. Very interesting draft year. Me and Lo were just talking about this the other day. So 16th overall. He's among the likes of Charlie McAvoy, which went 14th overall. Matthew Tkachuk, Clayton Keller, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Patrick Laine, and of course Auston Matthews went first overall that year. But what's very interesting about that draft class, 29th overall in the fucking first round, St. Louis boy Trent Frederic. Hilarious, right? Because like he's a fourth line grinder and he's been basically labeled that completely. But what's really fucking dumb about this pick is, and all, kudos to him. Fucking stoked for him. I think it's great that he found his place in what he's supposed to do in the league. But Jordan Kyrou, second round, 35th overall. Alex DeBrincat, 39th, second round overall.
You could even throw Sam Steele in that too.
Yeah. Okay. Jesus Christ. Trent Frederic beat those guys out, and they're both studs. And I'm eating crow with Jordan Kyrou because I didn't think he was going to be anything. And dude, he's having a hell of a year. Fucking all-star, NHL all-star for the St. Louis Blues this year. It's just
fastest skater for what it's worth.
Yeah, I mean,
and he stumbled, which is nuts.
You also got Samuel Girard, Carter Hart, Ryan Lindgren. These are all guys that went after him.
How crazy is it that Adam Fox went in the third round and the Flames traded him away? Think about that one.
It just goes to show that like you need time to develop these kids sometimes. I always say, the top 5, you have no excuse. You need to grind it out. Everybody else, like, you might need time to develop. I get that. So yeah, that wraps up our what we were going to chat about this episode.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say before we wrap it up, fun fact, Adam Fox got drafted by the Flames. He refused to sign there.
Oh, okay.
Went to college, and then I think the Hurricanes got his rights, and then they traded for him, and all they gave up for him was a second-round pick and a third-round pick for basically a Norris defenseman.
Yeah.
Just insane.
That is crazy. So yeah, let's go fan questions. We haven't done this in quite some time. Dustin Puckett wants us to both make our all-star lineup. Who is it and why? We can't do why. It's going to take way too fucking long.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that he's talking about a person in every position of somebody that's in the league currently. And let's not spend too much time thinking about it because this could be a whole episode on its own.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Marc-Andre Fleury in net. He's my favorite goaltender currently, other than Vasilevsky, which is just the obvious answer. I'm going to say Adam Fox and Alex Pietrangelo as my defensemen. I'm going to do. Is Auston Matthews a center? Is he a center or is he a winger?
Your guess is as good as mine.
I think he might be actually a winger.
Oh, he is a center. Yeah,
he's a center. Okay, I say Auston Matthews center. My wingers are going to be. I'm assuming we're going 5-on-5 with no one else on the bench. So I'm going to do. Yeah, I'm going to do Matthews.
Oh, I was just going to go with like a starting like 6, like 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and a goalie.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Like if we were doing, in my head, I'm just thinking it's 5. Like we're like these guys are just going to play each other in a game. So like, who would I want as my strongest setup? And I'm going to say Matthews, Draisaitl, and then just for shits and grins, Ryan Reeves. Just throw him on the ice and let's let him, fucking take some heads off.
Okay, fair. I think goalie on my side without that, I think I go Vasilevsky. Like there's no shying away from it. I think when it comes to defensemen, I'd probably like Cale Makar as well as Adam Fox. And forward wise, I'm going like win now mode. Like this is my all-in year. Like I'm not building for the future. Like this is it. If I had to pick, probably like Crosby at center, Ovechkin for the power play, and then I think the last one is the tough one. But I mean, probably like because I think I want to say probably like the last one's the toughest one for me. So I'm like, I don't know who to necessarily pop in there.
That's why I picked Reeves, just to be a shithead.
No,
Tom Wilson, you gonna throw him in there?
I thought about it. I was like, no.
Patty Maroon.
No.
Like, you're gonna win. You're gonna fucking win. The guy just fucking wins all the time.
I mean, I think you gotta have, some other setup. Well, I guess you have Crosby for setup guy. I think you just need a 2-way guy. I mean, at that point, maybe just throw in like just a Blues homage, like an O'Reilly. Like, granted, he's a center, but you make it work.
You're like, fuck it. I'm just gonna throw another center in there. So Alex Cage, 14 on Twitter, wants to know who's gonna make the biggest splash at trade deadline, which I feel like kind of ties into what we've been talking about. I think it's no brainer. The New York Rangers have so much in cap space that they're gonna add. They're gonna add and then add some more. I think that they're gonna be big buyers, and that's my intake.
I think Rangers, or like I said, with the wild, crazy situation that no one's talking about, it's them, one of the two. They're gonna make something happen.
All right, so Nathaniel PZIMM1 on Twitter wants to know what is our favorite shootout of all time. But I'm gonna interject. You cannot say TJ Oshie. It's gotta go out the window. It has to. I'm gonna say my favorite shootout of all time. I was in the Fortress in Vegas. This is before I moved here. And it actually just came up. Somebody was saying this is the best Selly of Vegas Golden Knights history. And it was Jonathan Marchessault scores the game winner in a shootout. And he just kind of does this like twirl and this cocky fucking look on his face. And Eric Halla, so that goes to show you how long ago it was. It might have been even year one. Just skates out, tackles him, and throws him to the ground. It was just a good vibe. So that's my answer. And like I said, you cannot say TJ Oshie and Team USA.
That's fine. I'm gonna go Team Sweden with Peter Forsberg with the gold medal, one-handed tuck in against the Canada in '94, I think. Like that solidified that. I think that actual move, like that is when it became the Forsberg. Like that's when like Sweden upset Canada to win gold. Like absolutely nuts stuff. I think that's it for sure. Like it wasn't like a 20-round shootout or anything, but like ballsy move to pull off in the early mid 90s, and then for fucking gold medal, like nuts.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Make sure you go back and listen to our latest podcast with Shane Told of Lead Singer Syndrome and the band Silverstein. Also, I just want to throw out NHL's Most Hated, one of my favorite episodes, and it's not outdated. So if you want to go back and listen to that as well, you should. We're going to come back at you. We got at least another episode, if not two, before trade deadline. We're looking forward to it.
I think if we stick to Tuesdays, work out perfectly. We'll have one 6 days before, and then we'll have one right after trade deadline.
Easy.
So should be perfect.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you add us on Facebook and Twitter and all that great shit. And I don't have anything to cheers, but you should definitely check out Topo Chico and our great sponsors at Schlafly Beer. Cheers, everybody.
Later, guys.